And it was an epic Olympic Games. First time man had ever run faster than 10 seconds in the 100 meters, faster than 20 seconds in the 200, 44 seconds in the 400. First time a person repeated in the 100 meters. Wyoming Tyus, a woman, was the first one to win back-to-back gold medals in Tokyo first and Mexico City second. So our team had the greatest performance the United States has ever had. My teammate Bob Beeman jumped more than 1.5 feet further than any other jumper had ever done. He completely jumped past 28 feet and landed at 29.2½, which is still, 45 years later, the Olympic record. So he jumped into the next century, literally. My other teammate, Al Order, throws the discus for you throwers. Al Order won 4 gold medals in a row in 12 years. He won in 1956, 60, 64, and 68. Incredible performances, not just because he's the first person to ever do it, but also because he was never favored in any of those 4 Olympic Games. There was always another person who was a world record holder or the favorite who was dominating in the discus. But when they got to the competition, Al Order was the guy. In the high jump, I had the best day of my career. You know how you are when you feel that you're really on? I was completely on. I made every attempt, starting at 6'8", all the way to 7'3", with no misses. So I was leading the competition, clean on every jump. 7'4", Carruthers and I were going for the gold, but I was leading him on misses. He'd had a couple misses on the way up, and we both missed first 2 attempts. So we have one last attempt. I'm jumping before Carruthers. If I miss, Ed can win the gold. So I've got to make it. And I did. I got back there, rocked back and forth, and I was visualizing going over the bar. What's that perfect technique that you use? And really feeling it. And then rather than worry about the visualization, I focused on believing that I could do it. I had no doubts in my mind. Because you know, as athletes, we all have these same doubts. It's a wedge that's trying to get in from the back of our mind that convinces us, you know, I don't think I could do it. I've never done this before. And you have to overcome that, and you can with practice. So practice is what helps you to perform at your highest level. So I made that height at 7'4". The stadium erupted. It was a great celebration, and my life changed from then on. Changed completely. There's the usual stuff when we got back home. There's all kinds of parades. I got invited on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and I was on there with Bill Cosby, who's a high jumper, as well as a world famous comedian. Johnny Carson cleared 4 feet using his version of the Fosbury flop, which was not pretty. I was on this game that used to be on television called the Dating Game, where a girl would select one of 3 guys. I was one of the 3, didn't get selected. They had a guy that had been on the show 3 times. He's a comedian. I'm an athlete, and I was not very funny, so I didn't get selected. But I was still a junior at Oregon State, and I had to go back home to finish school. And I got back to school, and I had, you know, everybody knew who I was, and notoriety is a two-edged sword. All of us as athletes, we like it when people see what we're doing and notice what we're doing. That's part of performance. But the other part of performance is that people put you on the podium and they keep you there, and that separates you. And I didn't want to be separated. Some people loved me, they adored me, they honored me. You know, it's nice being respected, but it's not comfortable having people that have these overwhelming positive thoughts about you, and they don't know what your flaws are. You know, when you're a normal person, you make mistakes. And I had already made some mistakes the year before. I had flunked out of engineering school. I was starting to focus on athletics more than my schoolwork. And so I was still in school. I transferred into a different school of sociology, took different classes in philosophy and religion, but I really wanted to be an engineer. And my coach wanted me to finish my 4th year for the team. So I continued to compete my 4th year, finished out the year, and I went back to talk to the Dean of Engineering. Asked him, begged him to let me try again one last time. So he said, yes, I'll put you on probation, okay? Means you can't mess up. We're watching to see how you do. You've got to build your grades up, and oh, there's one other condition. No high jump. Because you've already proven you can't do two things. You can't be an athlete and be a student. Now, at that time, it was a choice. You know, what are you going to do? Well, in athletics in those days, it was still amateur, and there was no professional, so I couldn't make a living high jumping, and I needed to get a job. I needed to go to work, and I wanted to be an engineer. So I said, deal, I will do it. So I stopped jumping for 2.5 years, got my engineering degree, graduated the spring of '72, and that summer, 1972, they had the Olympic trials in Eugene. I moved to Eugene. I immediately started jumping in meets to see if I could make the team again. But I couldn't, I missed it. You know, I couldn't qualify. So our Olympic team went off to Munich for the Olympic Games, and I stayed home and watched on television and started a job as an engineer. And that was a difficult choice, but for me, it's the right choice. I love being an engineer. I love designing things, solving problems for people, just as I was solving my own problem with my technique with the high jump. So I'm a problem solver. I like to be creative. I like to think out of the box, be innovative, and come up with new solutions or several solutions to the same problem. And the rest of my life was changed because from then on, I was invited to go speak to groups, tell them, how did I do this? Where did I come up with this technique? And work with kids, teach coaches about the technique, and begin to travel around the world, meeting other athletes all over the world, and practicing Olympism, which is about body, mind, and spirit. And through sports, you can change the world to make it more peaceful and a better place, more healthy place. So this is what I've done the rest of my life. I've retired as an engineer. I'm still doing track camps and doing coaching, working with you guys, and my life couldn't be better. So sometimes you have to make tough choices, but if you think about it, you follow your heart, And even if you make the wrong choice and make a mistake, you'll have a second chance. So no regrets, don't look backwards, but always move forwards. And that's why I love to come to Panther Pond, is to work with you guys, teach you to high jump, tell you stories, and try to make your life a better one. We're, all of the counselors, the staff, all of us are here to help you. And so, as Peter said at the beginning of camp, if you have any questions at all, ask us. If there's something that you're confused about, make us clarify it. But we're here to have a great time, and today was a good day. Sun was out again. We had a little bit of rain, but it was a good one, and tomorrow we'll cross our fingers it'll be sunny again. So thank you for coming to camp. And does anyone have any questions, anything else?
I have one.
Sure.
I saw you on TV for a car commercial.
Yeah. Yeah, Mazda.
You must get paid for stuff like that.
I do get paid for stuff like that. You know, when I was in college, I was an amateur. But I turned professional when I got a job and went to work. And so, you know, I'm very fortunate. I think right now I'm the only track and field athlete in the United States that's in any commercial. And so, you know, life's a blessing. And this was really fortunate for me. I'm happy because making some money from that commercial enables me to do a lot of other things and work on some other projects that I've got in mind. Maybe inventing a new technique. You know, why not, right? So I'm lucky that Mazda chose to use me, Laird Hamilton, the surfer, the first guy that got a jet ski to tow him to the top of those bodacious 50-foot mountainous waves so that he could surf the biggest waves that have ever been surfed. And Thomas Edison is in there. There's an inventor for you. So it was a good thing. Anything else? Yeah.
Do you like better engineers than jumpers?
You know, good question. I loved jumping, but I'll tell you, my favorite sport is basketball. And I mean, it's funny because eventually people begin to identify you as, oh, you're the high jumper. And, you know, I knew, and I know today, I'm more than that. But I know, you know, we need something to relate to each other. If I need to be called the high jumper, that's okay with me. But I know that basketball is my favorite sport. But listen, I'm fortunate. I'm 65 years old. And I can snowboard, I can mountain bike, I can rollerblade. I can do a lot of stuff we never had when I was your age. We never had rollerblades. We had roller skates. We had downhill skis, we had cross-country skis. We didn't have snowboards. We didn't have mountain bikes. I had, my first bike was a 1-speed, then I got a 3-speed. And today I've got a 21-speed that has full suspension, and it's fantastic. So, you know, stay healthy and continue to exercise. Do some activity, whether it's swimming or it's running or hiking or whatever it is that you love to do. Continue to do that, because I've survived cancer. I was ill 5 years ago, and I still came to camp, but they put me in a golf cart, so that I could buzz around and chase after the high jumpers. And I was really blessed. I'm fortunate that I survived cancer, which is a very serious illness. But I was healthy going into it, and I have a very stubborn mind. I'm very competitive, and I'll always be that way. But it's, you still have to be polite. And you still have to behave and be a nice person. And so, to try to answer your question, that's a tough one. I was a high jumper and became an engineer. And so I can't say I loved one more than the other, because I did one at one time, and then I did the other at another time. And now I'm doing this. And next week I'm going to do another camp in Idaho. And then I'll take a break. And I'll stay at home in Idaho for a few weeks before I go to my next appearance, and continue to be active doing stuff like that. So my favorite thing is what I'm doing now. And but looking back, I love both of them. But I love basketball better. Yeah.
Are you, or were you, or are you sponsored by Adidas? You're always Adidas.
I am. Now, it's good question. That's a fair question. And quite honestly, I know what spikes you guys wear. Listen, the apparel companies are really good. And the high jump shoes are great. They're all about the same, but it's all about branding. When I was competing, there were two kinds of shoes, Puma and Adidas. Nike didn't exist. There was no Nike. You guys all know Steve Prefontaine, right? Yeah. Famous American runner, record holder. What was he wearing in the Olympic Games? No. Puma. No. Yes. He was wearing Adidas because Nike was still developing. So, listen, sports changes, but I'm wearing Adidas. I never got paid until I got old enough and started to retire. Now they pay me to promote their gear, and I will. I love their stuff. But listen, we all wear what we love to wear. And I can tell you, I get some really good stuff from them, so I'm pretty loyal. So, yeah, thank you. Anything else? Rocky, what, are we okay for time?
Yeah, we're fine with time. Right?
Okay, yep.
When did the rest of the high jump community start to adopt the flop?
Yeah, good question. So, there's another inventor of jumping over backwards. Her name is Debbie Brill. She's a Canadian. She's 5 years younger than me. She and I never saw each other until 1966. And I saw this scrawny little 13-year-old teenager when the state of Oregon had a dual meet with British Columbia. So we were a cross-border international competition age group. And the girls jumped first, and she jumped, and I couldn't believe my eyes. There's this kid who's using the same technique. She's still in the development stage. So she's the other inventor, and her style is called the Brill Bend. Okay, so she wanted her own identity, which is fine, because she invented this thing also all by herself. Now, my coach, after I broke the school record, my coach began to teach a couple of freshmen how to use this technique. And it, you know, it wasn't all that successful. They were pretty good jumpers and they were getting the hang of it, but those were the early days. After Mexico City, every kid in the United States was doing the Fosbury flop, and around the world. They'd seen it, they saw it, it looks like fun, it's crazy because you land on your back. So the kids all over the world started using it. But the elite high jumpers were not so convinced. You know, there's one guy that wins a gold medal, but he's the only guy. So, you know, they don't trust it. And any elite high jumper has spent hundreds and hundreds of hours practicing that belly roll, practicing their technique that their coaches were teaching them. So the first guy that was pretty good on the national scene was 71, 3 years later. 1972, we had 2 floppers on the team in the U.S. 1972 was the last Olympic champion that was not a flopper. 1976, from then on, all Olympic champions have used this style. The last straddler, there's always the last something, right? The dinosaur. The last straddler was the Olympic champion in the decathlon, 1988, named Schenk. And he used the straddle technique, and he jumped 7'4", the same height as I did, and did 9 other events. Okay, so that guy was incredible. But 1988 was the last time, so it took 20 years for there to be 1, 2, 3 guys in the world that are using the technique. Today everybody does. And you know, the question is, what comes next? So I'm kind of joking about inventing a new technique, but I got this idea. So stay tuned. We'll see.
How did you feel when you discovered that everyone was using the technique?
Well, it happened gradually, you know, and when I got home from Mexico, and my coach was teaching a couple other jumpers, I felt that there's going to be some other jumpers that'll be able to use this technique. Good, you know, I like it, I love it, it works for me, and so I thought there'd be a couple others, but as it began to grow and more high jumpers, at first it was amazing to watch, and now, as you guys know, you guys look at old black and white films to see some guy that's using a different technique. It's history, you know, so it's history for me too. Everybody uses the flop technique, and I get it, I understand, but you know, it was strange at first. The first guy that came along that was really good was a guy named Dwight Stones. He's probably one of the best high jumpers from the United States. Never won the gold, but he broke the world record umpteen times, and he was my predecessor. He was the guy that came behind me. He won 2 bronze medals in the Olympic Games. Another athlete that I got to tell you about is the Olympic champion for the women in 1972. Guess how old she was? Her name was Ulrika Maifar. How old was she? 16. Lucky guess. Olympic champion, 16-year-old teenager. So, you know, it's possible to get there. You can't discount it, and you've got to always believe in the possibilities. Now, what's amazing about Ulrika, and she's a good friend of mine, beautiful high jumper, and she competed at her second Olympic Games 12 years later, in 1984, in Los Angeles, and won her second gold. 12 years apart. So, listen, you know, you can, if you start thinking about it, your plan is to reach your peak when you're 30 years old. So we're talking, we've got some time here. We've got time to train, time to practice, and follow the program and become a better athlete. Because it's possible, you can do it, yeah.
I know you said you retired from engineering, but did you retire from high jumping? Do you still jump?
I retired from high jumping. When I had my tumor, it was on my spine and on L4. That's one of the vertebrae right exactly in the middle of your back or lower back. And it had completely enveloped my vertebrae. So when they removed the tumor, they removed L4, and so they did a spinal fusion, which is a post between the two vertebrae, and they put it in X-brace and screwed it together, and so it's all really stiff, and I lost a lot of strength. But that's my excuse. I'm never jumping again. I'm done, and if you want to see my movies, I'll show them to you. But I'm not worried about that, because I got other stuff I can do. Hiking mountains and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, Sarah.
When you started like landing on your back,
Yep.
what were the kids made out of? Were they foam already?
No, our high school in Medford, Oregon had one of the first foam pits in the state. And that was 1964. 1964 Olympic Games was the first Olympic Games that had foam. Before that, it was sawdust. So all the pits that I was jumping in, we were jumping in sawdust or wood shavings, which is way better than sand that they used to jump in, including the pole vaulters. Okay, so high jumpers, we think we're tough, but we're not falling from 8 feet higher. And so the environment has changed through the eons in athletics. Today you've got nice surfaces, nice tracks that we go on to over at Poland High School, synthetic surfaces, very consistent. But 50 years ago we were running on cinders, clay, dirt, landing in sawdust. We had a pitchfork, and you would fluff the pit over and you'd stack it up. I know where I'm going to land, and so I'd move the pit over here. And that guy knew he's coming, and he moved the pit over here. And we kind of mounded up and hit it. I only missed the pit once, and it knocked the air out of my breath, and that took me back, so I never did that again. But and the old foam pits were chopped up mattresses, chunks of foam, and they throw a net over it, and it's all lined with bales of hay to keep it from going all over the rest of the field. So it was really primitive. But in 1968 at the Olympic Games, it was a porta pit. And it's covered, and it's buffed, and it's safe, and we never had to worry about the land ever again. So we have it good, don't we? And we includes the pole vault. So that's a good thing. All right, thanks you guys. Yeah, one last question.
I was wondering if you had to pick any other event to do, what was your next favorite event?
Good question. My other event was hurdles. I ran the highs. And I ran the highs because my coach was not a high jump coach, he was a hurdles coach. So he recruited me, and I ran the high hurdles, and I looked good. But I was really slow. And so even when you have a second event or a third event or fourth event, go for it. Try it. because the cross training I really like. I liked running the hurdles. I was just always beat, you know. And so I finished back in the back of the pack, but I scored points at Oregon State on the track team. When we had a meet against Stanford and their guys were sick and injured. And so I finished third. 4 of us started. I probably couldn't beat that guy on a normal day, but he didn't even run the first hurdle. He just got in the blocks to psych us out. And I finished third out of 3 and scored a point, and I was happy. And so hurdles was my other event. I tried long jumping. You know, as a kid, I did the shot put because I'm tall. I pole vaulted about shoulder high. I've never gotten my feet above my head. So I've tried other events. I did distance running in junior high. And I remember blacking out, you know, running to the finish line. And you just see stars, and I was not in very good shape, obviously. But I love sports. I love playing games. And so you got to try and test yourself and find out what you love to do. We all do it. We've all gone through it. The perfect athlete has never been born that doesn't lose. We've all lost, but we don't quit. You know, you keep going. So that's the biggest difference. And the concept of whether you quit or not, I'll talk about that tomorrow. Okay? So thanks, you guys.